Hello everyone, this is Sean Broccoli, and today I'm going to show you how to efficiently unlock the 150 fighter challenges with each character in Killer Instinct. Now, I'm not going to go in depth with each character. Obviously, each character is going to be a little different. I'm just going to kind of provide a baseline guide on how to best efficiently tackle the challenges. You're going to have to obviously modify it a bit to go with your feel with the character. I know some characters can be a little more difficult to do certain things like juggle hits. I know I had a lot of trouble with the General ROM. So you'll have to make some modifications, reallocate some challenge titles to make up for the lack of juggles. But for the most part, things will probably go pretty smoothly with the way that I've done things. So the first thing you're going to want to do is there's going to be 50 survival games that you need, matches I guess you need to do. Now there's going to be other matches as well that you get titles for. Everything has 10 titles, and every so many times you hit a number for that challenge, you go up a title. So the ones with the matches, there's ranked, exhibition, survival, and versus. So first off, we're going to start with the survival. So the survival is pretty straightforward. It's an endless survival. You fight enemy after enemy until you lose. It typically gets harder as you go on, so I tend to like to go up to 15 at most and then restart. It gets a bit grindy, so you might want to do 10 or 15 with one character, then move on to another character. I know when I was doing that, it got a bit boring. But the reason why I like to start off with the survival is because it allows you to play the game naturally, and you'll accumulate some of those fighting challenges naturally that way. So I'll quickly go over what all the fighting challenges are, and I guess how you accomplish them. So obviously you got the ranked matches, so you just play ranked matches. There's 100 for all 10 titles. You probably don't want to go that far, it's going to take quite a bit. I typically stop around 6 or 7 titles. That's around 40-50, or 40-50, which is basically what you're going to get when you're trying to boost for your killer and your gold ranks, as well as your 20 ranked wins for each character. Counters, I have a bit of trouble with, so I'm just going to assume this is going to be kind of hard for a lot of people. If you are able to pull those off, then it'll definitely make things easier for you. But for the most part, I kind of struggled with them. Sometimes I got them randomly, which made things a little easier as it gave me a little wiggle room. But for the sake of this guide, we're just going to leave it at 0. We're going to assume that you're not going to get any of them. Next would be the survival, which obviously we're going to go for 10. That's 50 games. The versus, that's going to be 100. That one sounds daunting, but it's actually pretty simple, and I'll get to that later. The exhibition one will go up to 100 as well, but I usually just stop at 4. Usually 20 to 30 games is enough. Sometimes less if you manage to get some of your fighting challenges up above what the guide's going to suggest is the recommended amount. There's going to be supreme victories. Those are pretty easy. You're going to get those just by doing the survival, pretty much. And you can also get them in the ranked boosting as well, because it's not like the people you're boosting with are going to fight back. But to get the supreme victories, it's just you defeat an enemy without losing your first bar of health. So you'll have a green bar and then a red bar. As long as you stay in the green, you'll get a supreme victory when you win the game. There's 10 titles, or there's aerial attacks. So these ones are actually pretty simple to do. I'll go through that as well later on. There's going to be 3 special fighting challenges for each character. So those are going to be unique to each character. Typically, they're pretty easy to some of them are easy to obtain. Usually you can just, if you have the combo assist on, you can just mash X or A and it'll do some of them within that auto combo. But for some characters it doesn't, so then you'll have to kind of manually boost those. There's autos and manuals. So the autos, with the autos and manuals, I'm not 100% sure how you get these, but I have sort of an idea. So the autos, I believe, are just from just random combo assist, mashing the same button over and over again. That's how I typically get those to go up. Manuals are a bit more tricky. I'm thinking that it's probably easy to obtain those if you turn off combo assist, but I don't because I'm pretty crap at the game. So I found that I usually get those when I maybe juggle an opponent in the air and I jump up and hit them, or if they're bouncing and I just hit them. Something that's outside of a combo. I think it mostly, the research I've been doing, I think it mostly has to do with the timing of the attack. Like you have to hit the button within a certain amount of time of the last button, and if you time it perfectly, then it's considered a manual. There's combo hits, which you'll get 10 of those titles pretty easily. It's just going to count all the combo hits that you make during the entire playthrough. You'll get 10,000 just pretty much naturally. There's combo breakers, which you'll need to boost if you're shit at the game like me. Combo enders, which are, I say they're pretty easy, but you just have to know how to do them. There's also throws, which are easy. There's actually a easy tip for doing throws, which you can do while you're boosting some of the other stuff, which I'll bring up later. You typically do a throw by hitting the light punch and light kick button at the same time, which on the controller is usually X and A. What you also can use instead is down on the right directional pad, or not directional pad, the right analog stick. You can also use that for the combo breakers as well, for light attacks. If you want to break a medium, I believe left or right will do medium, and then upwards will do heavy attacks, and it'll also activate your instinct, which will be a challenge later on that in this list. There's also overhead, so those are basically attacks from above. You can those usually stack with your aerial attacks. You shouldn't really need to boost those. I've had it a couple times where I had to boost from 9 to 10 manually, but for the most part, you should be able to accomplish those pretty easily. There's juggles. Juggles are they're hit and miss. Some characters juggle a lot, even during the ultras, so you'll rank those up pretty easily. Other characters, like I mentioned, General Rom, don't, so unless you really know how to pull it off with those characters, you're probably going to have to reallocate those titles somewhere else, which shouldn't be too big of a deal. You can always just do more games played or something like that. Maybe you'll accomplish more titles in something than I recommend somewhere. Anyways, there's blocks as well. Typically, I don't really block in the game. I'm offense only. So if you're, I guess, effective with blocking, you could probably knock those out naturally. I had to boost those. There's shadow moves, which I will give you a little tip there. With the combo assist, you can usually pull off your shadow moves by pointing the left stick towards the enemy and hitting the left bumper or the left trigger. I typically like to combine those with, you add those into your combos, but I also combine them with do them right before the ultra, because they don't really send the opponents flying or anything. I know Gargos, his are ranged, so they don't really work with his ultra, but for the most characters, you can just use your shadow moves quickly before you perform the ultra. After that, you have your instinct, which will be your it'll be like it's a yellowish bar that's below your health bar, It basically grants your character a certain kind of special ability for a certain time. It's unique to each character. Jago, I guess, for the most commonly used guy. If you activate his his instinct, he'll gain health for every Indukin that lands. So they all have different like quirks like that. You typically build your instinct bar by performing combo breakers or taking damage. It's in the game to kind of help you turn the tide of battle if you're losing, kind of thing. And then the last fighting challenge is going to be the Ultras, and that's going to be it's like a fatality in Mortal Kombat, except for there's really no gore, no death. It's just you do a crazy ass combo to end the match. Those are typically pulled off. With the combo assist, you can just use left bumper not left. For some characters it'll be left bumper, but some other characters will be left trigger. You'll have to look up which character is which, because they kind of alternate. And then whichever one is not used will be used for stage ultras. So Yago, for instance, his ultra would be left bumper, directional stick towards him, and his stage ultra would be left, the same thing but left trigger instead. And when I say left bumper, left trigger, it technically means all three punches or all three kick buttons. But basically the left bumper and left trigger simulate those button presses to make things easier. So, I guess as I'm discussing this, I'm going to have a video playing of basically some matches. You'll want to kind of see how my fighting style is, kind of mimic things. You'll see that I like to jump around and attack in the air. That's useful for starting the aerial attacks. The other thing you can keep note of is some of the special attacks will attribute to other challenges. Like General Ram, he has an attack called Dominance, where he picks up an enemy, stabs them, and then throws them. That counts as a throw. Some enemies will attack from the air, and that'll count as aerial attacks. So those are worth considering when you're looking at reallocating some of the fighting challenges, because chances are you're probably going to surpass the recommendation there. Like for General Ram, normally I recommend, I think it's like 7 titles for throws. With General Ram, I think I hit 9. So it's not a huge difference, but it does make a bit of a difference. So by the time that you're done the 50 survival games, you should have somewhere between 80 to 110 challenges done. Some obviously will be a little bit difficult. I know with Aganos, I only got him to like 88 challenges by the time I was done, so he took a little bit of manual boosting for that. The other thing you can do as well, the Shadow Lords mode, you can earn some challenges in there by playing those and earning those achievements. So obviously, if there's characters that you like to use more often, you'll probably obtain a lot more challenges than what I've recommended. So that'll make things easier for those characters at least. The other thing to note is the Shadow Lords single player games, they count as versus matches. So that'll also put a dent in your versus matches, but that's not the boosting part that I was speaking about before. You can also obtain some challenges if you want during your boosting for the ranked. Typically in the sessions that I've done, people I'm boosting with, if it's my turn to win, they just sit there and take the beating. So you can use that to your advantage as well. So like I mentioned before, you definitely want to have the combo assist on. It's just so much easier. You don't have to manually figure out the combos and stuff like that. For aerial attacks and specials, they don't actually have to hit for it to count. They can be blocked, they can just be mid-air, which is what I'm leading up to with the second player boosting part. So what you'll do is you'll do a local multiplayer game, just you against a second player. It could be with a second controller. I'm on PC, so I'm using an Xbox One controller, but I could use a keyboard if I wanted. The keyboard is kind of useful because it actually allows you could have both players onto a keyboard. But since I'm only using the one, I'm using the num keys for the second player and my controller for myself. So typically what I'll do there is I'll use that to boost the combo breakers, where I'll have the second player attacking my character with one hand. In the other hand, I have my controller, and I'll tap the directional stick downwards for the light attack, and I'll do combo breakers that way. Do 200 pretty quickly. I think I could average like 30 per match, 30 something per match. You'll also get your instinct up while you're doing that, so you can activate that, let it wear out, or do something else while you let it wear out. I try to avoid killing the second player. If you want to do some other challenges, you can do it until they get into the danger, but I wouldn't finish them off until you're completely done. What you also can do here is the aerial attacks, which, like I mentioned before, you can just jump up and attack the air. You don't actually have to hit anything, and it'll count towards those challenges. So if you don't manage to get all 10 within the survival matches, you can definitely do that there. I don't think I've had anybody finish below 7 titles after survival, so you'll just have to do, I think it was like maybe 1,000. Around 1,000, let's just say. But you can do those pretty easily just by jumping in the air and kicking. It can get kind of boring. And it does take a little bit of time. Obviously, like I mentioned before, you can do the special attacks too, and they don't have to hit. Obviously, some will be a little more difficult because they have to hit. An example of that would be Aghanos. If you do his Ruin attack, he actually launches towards the enemy, and it pretty much hits almost every time. Arya, I believe she has a move where she Resonance or something, I think it's called. It shoots a projectile at the enemy unless you're able to dodge it with your other controller or keyboard. It's probably going to hit. Other than that, as long as you can activate the move and it doesn't have to hit. But some are going to just hit by default. That's what I'm trying to get at least. Before I continue, I should bring up I don't think I spoke about the enders. So basically, when you're doing a combo, you'll see a bar pop up, and it will be green, and then it'll go yellow and red, and it'll have the number of hits that you've done. So basically, what you want to do is hit the opponent as that bar goes up. You can throw in some shadow moves if you want. Those typically don't increase the bar, but it'll add hits. But once that bar goes green, what you want to do is you want to use your heavy punch or heavy kick, which is right bumper or left trigger on a controller, and that'll typically perform an ender automatically. That's how at least I do it as a noob, I guess. So you'll want to try and finish all your combos with one of those. That'll help you get the challenge up to the recommended amount pretty easily, maybe even pass it. It took me a while to kind of figure that out, so I'm sure knowing this will be helpful to some. Now once you got your opponent into the danger status, this is the part where you're going to want to end your match with an Ultra. You'll want to do this in pretty much all the game modes. So when you're doing survival, you want to do this. When you're doing your rank boosting, you want to do this. And when you're doing your manual boosting with second controller or a keyboard, whatever, you'll want to do this as well. Exhibition is going to be kind of iffy on this. I'll get to that as well. And then for the versus matching boosting, you're definitely not going to be able to do that. I'll explain more later, as I mentioned. But anyways, what's going to happen is once they're in danger, you're going to want to start a combo. Be sure, some characters have attacks that will knock opponents away. You want to kind of avoid that, so you kind of got to figure out the best way to get a combo going that keeps an enemy around and you're able to link with the Ultra. But typically what I like to do is I do a couple hits, then I use if I have any shadow bars full, I use whatever shadow moves I can. Like I said before, typically they don't tend to send people flying, but Gargos, for example, does, so you're going to want to avoid that. You'll just want to use the Ultra, skip right to the Ultra. So just use once you're ready, hit the left bumper and directional stick towards the enemy, and you'll use your Ultra. The last bit of boosting that you'll need to do is the versus matches, which are easily done by creating a local match against the AI, and then just put it on the hardest difficulty, which would be Ultimate bracket Kyle bracket. I don't really understand the Kyle part, but I'm sure there's some sort of reasoning behind that name. And then what you'll want to do is, according to many people on TA, Spinal appears to be the enemy that'll kill you the quickest. So you'll just go ahead and select Spinal as your enemy, and then you'll just kind of sit there and let the AI kill you. Usually it takes about 30 seconds. And then you'll just have to restart the match manually, unless you have a turbo controller, in which you can use the turbo controller to just hit A over and over again to restart the match. And then you'll just have to do that over and over again. That'll get you your 200 matches, and it'll also get you to all 10 titles of the versus matches as well. You can also use that time to boost instincts, as the enemy will be killing you, so you'll get at least 1 to 2 bars of instinct per match. So if you still need those instinct challenges, you can go ahead and do that while Spinal is destroying you. Now we'll get straight to the recommendations. So starting with the ranked matches, I recommend 6 titles for ranked. You can go up to 8 if needed. I don't recommend going further than that, as once you get to 60 matches, which will be title 8, you're going to be required to get 20 more matches to get to the next level, which is 9, and then 20 more to get to 10. Next is the counters, which I have at 0. If you are able to pull these off, or you can go ahead and get as many as needed. I'm sure they probably accumulate kind of like the combo breakers, but yeah, if you're a noob like me, I recommend just skipping it. If you happen to get some by accident, that's great, but we're just going to assume you're not going to get any here. Next will be the survival titles, and obviously I recommend 10. It's only 50 games played. Knock 10 to 15 out per day, per character, and you should get that over the course of like 3 or 4 days. Next is Versus. I recommend all 10. It's pretty much the same thing as the ranked matches, and it'll be the same for Exhibition. It's going to be 100 games. From title 8 to 9 is going to be 20 matches, and 9 to 10 will be 20. But obviously, you don't really have to do anything for those 20 or those matches, so you might as well. You might as well just go for them. Next is Exhibition. I recommend 4 titles for Exhibition. You can go higher. Again, we're going to recommend 8 being the max. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of games if you're going to, if you decide to go past 8. Even going up to title 8 is a lot, because I think that's like 60 games per character. Next will be Supreme Victories. I recommend all 10. It shouldn't be too hard. It's 50 Supreme Victories to get all 10. You should be able to do that through your survival matches on beginner. I mean, it's not like the computers are that difficult to defeat. Aerial attacks. I recommend 10 titles. It's 2,500 for all 10. I believe up to title 7 you need 1,000 for title 7, 1,500 for title 8, 2,000 for title 9, and 2,500 for title 10. Again, like I mentioned, you pretty much just have to jump up in the air and attack the air. You'll get a lot of these during your survival matches as long as you kind of mimic how I play, just always jumping and attacking from the air to start a combo. Next will be your 3 specials. I recommend 14 titles between the 3. So you can kind of combine those any way that you want. You can load up on one and then just get the minimum on the other 2. For a lot of them, I think I sort of tried to get 5, 5, and 4, but obviously there were some where I got 8 on one, and then I only managed to get maybe 3 or 4 on the others. As long as you get 14 titles between the 3, you should be solid. Autos, I recommend 7 titles. Manuals, I recommend 7 titles. Combo hits, I recommend 10 titles. That's 10,000 hits. It's not very difficult. You'll just accumulate these over time. Combo breakers, I recommend 7. So that'll get you to, I believe, 200. Once you get to title, I think it's 3, they start going up by 50, which you can knock out in every 2 matches. You can get 1 title, like boosting. After that, after you hit 7, it starts incrementing by 100. So if you do desperately need 1 more title or a couple more titles, you can still, I guess, go for those. I think that last one might, title 9 to 10 might increase even more. Next would be combo enders. I recommend 8 titles there. There's nothing really too complex about that. You just want to end your combos using the high punch or high kick or heavy kick, heavy punch. Typically those will use enders at the end of a combo. Next will be throws. I recommend 7. Typically those will go up by 100, which isn't too difficult. After 7, I think they can start going up by 200. So it can get a little bit time consuming after that. So unless you have one of the characters that has a special that doubles as a throw, I wouldn't recommend going past 7. Overheads, I recommend all 10. It's just 500. All you have to really do is do an attack that lands from basically over the opponent's head. All characters have moves from the ground that you can do that, but I like to stack them with the aerial attack, so I just jump and attack them on the ground while they're standing on the ground. If you don't manage to complete those during the survival, obviously, like I mentioned before, you can just do the second player boosting thing, put your second player in the corner, just jump up. When you're dropping down, hit A to hit them, and then just rinse and repeat. You only need 500. Juggles, I'm going to recommend 10 here. You should be good for the majority of the characters. I mean, you don't have to. I guess you can reallocate some of them for the juggles somewhere else. But for the most part, a lot of the characters will be able to get at least near 10. But yeah, there's always going to be that those few characters that aren't. So you'll just have to adjust there. For blocks, I recommend 4 titles. The problem with blocks is after title 4, I believe you need like 500 per title, which can be a bit time consuming even if you're attacking yourself with a second controller. If you're, I guess, desperate, you can, I guess, do that one. Shadow moves, I recommend 8 titles. Those are pretty easy. You can usually get 2 to 4 full shadow bars per match, as long as you use them efficiently. Instinct, I recommend 4 titles. I can't remember how far that goes up. I think that might be 100. I can't remember for sure. But the instinct ones, they could be a bit time consuming as well. Not that easy to boost them, as you need to pretty much take damage or do the combo breakers. I pretty much just see how far you can get with the combo breakers. If you get to 4, that's great. And then if you're doing the boosting later, or like the rank boosting, or maybe the versus, kind of keep note of how many you need to the next title, because if you're already close to the next title, you might as well just knock out the next couple. And then last, it will be ultra titles. I recommend 7, and that should take care of your that will take care of your 150 challenges. I do believe that if you add all this up, it comes out to 153 titles, so that does give you a wiggle room of 3 challenges. You have 3 extra challenges, so you got some wiggle room there to adjust there. So yeah, if, like I said, with the juggles, you'll be fine there if you just get 7, or if your autos or manuals are maybe a little bit lower, you should be fine as long as it fits within 3 extra. I'll also add all this information into the description, so you have kind of a written version that you can copy and paste maybe. It's easier for you. And that pretty much does it for this guide. If you have any other suggestions or tips, go ahead and add them into the comments. This is Sean Broccoli. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time.